Shamari asked, are there any drawbacks from not using code when prototyping?
I mean, the drawbacks of not using code when you're prototyping. So the thing you want, like in the very beginning of stages of anything you're building, I highly recommend, and I might be biased because I'm a designer, but it's also because I've built hundreds of digital products. But you don't want to use code because code is actually, it's more expensive. Code, people in development world cost more, right? So if you're working on real life projects with budgets and real clients and stakeholders and everything, you want to do more with less, right? And then it's easier for you to trash, a digital screen, right, that you just made in with pixels than it is with code, right? So you want to go down the path of least resistance that you can detach yourself from if you need to, in a way. Code usually just costs a lot more.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off of that, you can kind of fake a lot with prototyping, because the main goal of prototyping is to kind of test and get back to the people that need it, and so testing with those people or realizing it's not good. Just think about like the amount of time that you spent coding and then you tested it and then it wasn't good, and now you're gonna have to alter your code instead of just altering pixels, So right. Just keep that in mind when you're prototyping.
Yep. And then when you have something that you're like, oh, this might be good. I'm sure some of you who do code, there's like sandboxes out there like CodePen and there's some other ones like JS Fiddle and stuff like that, where you can go and you can start to play around with stuff within a sandbox, and then you can apply it to like a larger piece if you want to. So that's always good to do too if you feel like you have like a little piece that you want to work on and just try out with code. Okay, so I think what we're going to do is assume and hope that everybody has an account, everyone who wants to follow along within the program. So I'm going to hop on over to Figma, and we are going to dive into a little bit of the basics. So this should be the screen that you all came into and signed up with. So I'm going to log into my account, which is super easy. I'm going to log into my ActHouse account. Okay, and so this is just showing me like a lot of the recent stuff that I've worked on. But what you're going to want to do is go to your team, or your, if you don't have a team, just wherever your projects would live, which would be blank right now. So somewhere around here in this space, and then you're going to want to create a new project. And I can't because I maxed my free account out. But I'm going to go to one of these projects and I will create a new file. So hopefully everyone has a new file. And if you don't, just shout real quick and we'll catch you up to speed. But we're going to try and get through this, so I can't stop for everyone, but if you're having trouble, just shout and I'll see if maybe a question you have maybe answers it for other people too.
Someone asked if you recommended the web version.
Oh, actually.
Or the web browser or the Figma app.
Okay. Actually, so me personally, I prefer the the native app, like on your desktop. I'm just recommending it not to use it now so that we don't have to spend time downloading it and logging in. But when I'm actually working day to day, I love the app because I can have multiple tabs up, and I can have my design systems in one tab, and I can have multiple projects open in another. So, and I find it also less taxing on my computer. Okay, so this is the interface, right? And it's super minimal, right? Which is great because you want to get all the stuff out of the way and only have what you need to design with. And it's pretty amazing that like such a minimal interface is so powerful. But as soon as you start to create, you'll see more things show up that allow you to manipulate them. And the very first thing that you want to look at is your menu. So the menu over here, these are your simple, move and scale tools. So to move your mouse around or move an object around. Scale is to, of course, change the size of objects. And then this is going to be your frames. So if you use Sketch before, or if you use any other programs, you usually have what are called artboards. In Figma, they call them frames. And they're really powerful because you can have frames and frames, and we'll get into some of that and how that actually becomes useful. Over here is you're gonna have your basic shapes tool. So rectangle, line, arrow, and so on and so forth. I like to take note of the shortcuts so I don't have to come up here every time to click on them to make a shape. Also your basic pen tool and pencil tool. The pen tool is gonna allow you to create vector objects using a pen. You don't have to ever use that too often, but if you wanna make like a horizontal rule, that's typically the only time I really use a pen. Or if you're drawing in Figma, people have made some ridiculous sketches and drawings in here that are just amazing. It's really awesome. And then of course your text tool. And then your hand tool allows you to move the canvas around, which we'll get into, and then comments, which we won't get into today. That's in a future workshop. So the first thing you want to do is you're going to hit your F key. And your F key on your keyboard is going to bring up your frame tool, right? So you hit F, you get your crosshairs, and then you can just drag out a frame, okay? And that's basically your canvas right now. So it's your canvas that lives in like this endless desert that you can make as many canvases or objects you want. And so right now we're just gonna be focusing here. So another great way to do this, and what I always do, is I use the pre-sized canvases, where if you press F, this right side of your panel will change to show you pre-sized canvas sizes. So you have iPhone 11 Pro Max, iPhone 8, so on and so forth. I always go for the desktop 1440 because that's usually what I'm designing for. And then if you just grab it, you can move it around, so on and so forth, right? But for this workshop, I'm gonna actually go for a phone, and I'm gonna go for the iPhone 8 because that's what I have. Actually, it's a 7, but whatever. Don't want to be too embarrassed. And what I typically like to do also is sometimes, if I know I'm going to make a long screen, I'll just drag it down real quick. But we'll keep it as is. We'll keep it short. And what we're going to do is we're going to make all of the elements of a login screen here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to utilize every tool in a simple way. And so that way we all can get familiar with them. All right, so hopefully everybody is somewhat around here. Okay, and so let's start to make something with this canvas that represents some sort of login screen, like for an application, okay? And so what's one thing we wanna have first? It's probably the name of whatever we're building, right? So let's see. You want to press your T key on your keyboard, and that's text, right? So you press T, you click and drag, right? And then you have a text box, right? So let's see. What will be the theme? Can anybody type in or shout out like the theme of our app? Just make it up. Like what is it gonna be? Is it gonna be a restaurant finder? A food finder, a taco truck finder?
Taco truck sounds good.
Do taco
It
truck.
does sound
Okay.
good. I would like that.
All right. Let's do it. So we're gonna call this. What are we gonna call this? Tacos for life. Because tacos are life. So this tool is gonna help us find tacos near us. And so what you'll start to notice is that you're seeing a lot more things pop up over here on the right side, right? And that's what you call your inspector panel, okay? So when you don't have anything clicked, it's very minimal, but when you have something clicked, all of these tools show up. So it's only when you need them. So right now we have text, and I centered it by clicking the centered button over here, right? And so what I wanted the text to be is one bigger, right? So we go to our sizing over here, and I'm just going to use my arrow keys to increase it 1 point at a time. And I like just to make it the full width just to make sure I'm centering it. And you'll start to see that as you move things around, they'll like smart lock to the left, to the right, or to the middle. But to make sure it's in the middle, you can use your alignment tools. So if you just hit this align horizontal center, it'll make sure it's aligned. So let's say I had this over here like this, boop, to the center, right? And so another thing I want to do is I want to change the font, right? So in the text, I can go over here and I can change it to, let's see, what am I going to go with? I'll go with League. So it also depends on like what you have in your system, but I think it also taps into Google Fonts. Boom. So a nice bold font, right? Okay. And so what I'm also going to do is I want to give this a little bit of a background. So I'm going to click on the title of the canvas, and then I'm going to go over to my fill. So the fill changes the color of everything, right? And you'll see F, 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 right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Fs. That's a hex code. So the way that we identify number in a digital, color in a digital space is by hex or RGB. And RGB just stands for red, green, blue. So every pixel that you see on your screen is different amounts of red, green, and blue combined. And when you have all the same of each, you get white, which is pretty amazing. So we're gonna keep it hex, and let's see, what's a good color? I like kind of like a steel blue. Something like that. Something light, okay, cool. So now you have a color, and that goes the same for everything. So if you want to change the color of your text, you come over here, click on the square there, and you can change that also. Okay. And so what I want to do next is I want to create, let's say that you were logging in for an account. I want to create the space for your username and your password. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit my text key, click and drag, and I'm going to type in, first I want to get your name. So I'm going to type in name. And then a nifty thing you could do is you could press Command C and Command V, which is copy paste. And then you have a second one. So if you have something selected, you can press Command C, which is copy it, and then press Command V and paste it. It'll paste it right above it. And then you can just click and drag it down. So this is gonna be name. And I don't want it to be this big, right? Because usually a sign is a lot smaller than that, right? So we're gonna downsize that. And I typically like to do like different font pairings. So for like a headline font, it'll be nice and heavy and have like some nice characteristics to it. And then for like body copy, I can go back to Roboto because that's a little bit more made for legibility. So I'm gonna keep that regular. I'm gonna bring it back down a little bit, maybe 18. And then I'm actually gonna get rid of these because I'm going to use the styling of what's above here to create other form fields. So I'm going to make sure this is centered by going to my align tool and clicking it once, just making sure. And then I'm going to press Command C, Command V. And then now I have another one. So I am going to name this email. And then I'm going to do the same thing, Command C, Command V, drag it down. I'm going to put username. Command C, Command V, and then drag it down, and I'm going to put password, right? So now that I have all of these, they also need what we call like an input field, right? So they need a box that somebody would actually type into. So mixing in a little bit of UX design, you wouldn't know to necessarily like that this doesn't conventionally look like a form field at all, right? So we have to make something to make it look like it's something you would click on to fill it in. So typically that's a rectangle, right? So we're gonna hit our R key on our keyboard, and we're gonna be able to make a rectangle now. And so what I do is I make it the full width. Okay, just make sure it's a full width. And this is a nifty trick that I like to do to make things size the same on each side at the same time, is I hold down Option and I hold down Shift, and it brings both sides in at the same time. So I'm gonna go about right there. I'm gonna lower it a little bit. And so, and if you don't do that, and I'm gonna go back real quick just to show you, you can just size it like this, and then hit the center align tool over here like that. And now you're thinking, okay, well, we're covering our text, right? So what happens is like when you have all these layers, you can move things in front and behind, right? So what we want to do is we want to move this behind. So I'm going to right click it, and I'm going to go to move to back, send to back. So that means I want it all the way back behind everything. So now name shows up on top. So another thing that I'm seeing is that this gray color is kind of not, I don't know, it's not that, I'm not vibing with it. It doesn't look that nice. So I'm just going to change it to white. Like that. Okay. And then also what I like to do sometimes is I like to round the corners to make things a little bit more friendlier. So I'll just do that very subtly. And I'll put a corner radius of 3. And it automatically adds it to each corner. Okay. And so what I'm also going to do is, I know we centered this before, but typically when you see form fields, name or the title of that form field is left aligned. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to line this up so that there's a bit of space between this text box and the edge here. And I just realized that you all might be having trouble with this, like being able to zoom in and zoom out, because we didn't go over that. So it's very important. So let's do that real quick. So if you want to zoom in or zoom out, you press Command minus or Command plus. And that's a really easy way to zoom in and zoom out. If you want to zoom in so that whatever screen is selected, like it is now, you can press Shift 2. And Shift 2 brings that screen to fill your whole screen, or that whole canvas to fit your whole screen. So Shift 2 after that canvas is selected fills it for you. Okay. And another thing, if you have a trackpad, if you're using your hands on the trackpad, you can just pinch to zoom in and out also. Okay. And another really important tool that we didn't go over, my fault, is being able to move around the canvas. And so what you need to do is hold space, and that turns it into the hand, and then you can click and then drag. Can I get thumbs up from everyone if we're good so far? Thumbs down if you're completely lost. I can't see everyone. I don't know if anybody else can. Okay, I see some good thumbs up. Cool, cool, cool. All right. Like I said, this is just the very basics, okay? So stick with me. And hopefully this is really helpful for some of you. So we're making our first input field, like I said, left aligned, right? So we're gonna go to this left aligned tool, right? And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna, I wanna repeat this, right? So I'm gonna take all of these, including this one. And so what you can do is you click and drag, and that selects all of them, right? But I didn't grab this guy over here, but I wanted to be included because I'm gonna align all of them. So I'm gonna hold down Shift and click again, and now that guy is included in that group that's selected. And so why I have them all selected is because I want them all to align to the left. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to my left align tool, and I'm gonna click that, and you're like, okay, but they didn't align left. They did according to their text boxes, but the text also has to be aligned left within it. So I'm gonna go down here to my text align, and click that, and now they're all aligned left. So the first one was the object align, and the second one that I clicked was the text align, okay? So now what we want to do is we want to get this behind each one. So I'm just gonna, you can either do Command C, Command V, which is copy paste and then click drag, or what I like to do is hold down Option, click on an object, still holding down Option, click and drag. And that gives you also another one. So the option is copying that piece while you're dragging it. Okay, and I'm gonna do that again. Boom, boom. Okay, and now we have somewhat of what's looking like a form field, right? And I'm just gonna go ahead and create some subtext here so that people know what this is for. Boom. All right. And the last thing we want to do is going to move some stuff around. Is we want to make a submit button, right? So pretty much a lot of what we just did, I'm just going to option click. And if you want to click and drag and then so it doesn't move around like this, you want to just move straight down in line with where it was before, you do option shift click drag. And now I can't move it outside left or right. I can move it to the right directly, but I can't move it in between. It keeps it on the X and Y axis. Axes. I think that's plural. Axes. Okay, cool. So what I want to do is I centered that text because this button is going to be centered, right? So I used my text align to align the text within the text box. And I'm just going to close up that gap of the text box so it doesn't get in the way when I make the button. And since I already have a shape here, I'm not going to use my rectangle tool to make a new one. I'm just going to option shift click drag. And I'm going to get another button. I mean, another shape down here, the same as before. So the difference is that, oh, and you'll notice these aren't aligned center, right? So I'm going to click password text box. I'm going to hold down shift and click this object. So now they're both selected. And I'm going to go to my align tool, my object align, and align them horizontally in the center. So boom, we almost have a button. So I'm going to move this button in a little bit so it doesn't look like one of the form fields, and make it a little taller so it's easy to press with your thumb. And I'm going to call this submit, right? And the last thing we need to do is make this a different color. So sometimes what you can do is just, and I just use the eyedropper tool to pick any color on your screen. So I'm going to pick this blue, right? And then I'm just going to make it darker. Like that. I'm going to change this to white. So boom. Or what you can do, orange is a complementary color on the color wheel, so you can make this an orange to complement that kind of subtle blue that you have, if you have a blue, and that'll contrast nicely. And then I'm going to go ahead and make this thicker, so I'm going to make it bold. Boom. So super legible. And I'm going to zoom out so we can see it. And if you're also on a trackpad, if you put 2 fingers down, that's the same thing as pressing space, clicking, and dragging. 2 fingers does the same thing. Space, click, drag, 2 fingers. Zoom in, pinch to zoom, zoom out, or shift 2, after you click on the canvas, shift 2 zooms right in. And you can always, remember, you can always zoom in as much as you want if you want to get really detailed, which is what's great. Okay, I'm going to zoom out. So how's everyone feeling? Were we able to make something close to this? Thumbs up if we are. Let me see the thumbs. I'm trying to get my gallery view up.
We're getting a lot of thumbs.
Cool, cool, cool. Thumbs up if this is a good pace. Thumbs like this if you want to go faster. Thumbs up is a good pace. Okay, so this is a good pace for most people, it seems like. Good, 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 good. Okay. Just want to make sure I'm not boring anybody.
Never.
Okay, perfect. And one thing I was talking to Mira before this, and Mira, I don't know if you want to chime in, but about how it could be kind of really intimidating that, there's this, big tool and like there's a lot you could do, and it could be a bit intimidating to create like an interface from scratch. And so it was really smart for Mira to point out that it's good to show how you can access libraries of elements that already exist, like puzzle pieces that you can pull in and manipulate.
Yeah, definitely. I think one big thing that I was seeing pretty frequently with entrepreneurs is that feeling like they have to create everything from scratch. It's like, oh, I have to do this. I have to build this whole app by myself. I have to figure this out. But it's like they literally make like repositories of information to help you and help me make our jobs easier and to practice and play easier. Because the main thing is to get something that looks good. Because even if you make it from scratch, your skill level is at like here if you're just beginning, and you won't be to the point where you're like all the way up there. But it's always good to just practice with what you have. A good principle with designing, especially when you're drawing, is to copy or to, as practice, to copy or to replicate. So it's always good to use tools as a foundation in order to build other things.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, think about if any of you like play music or sports, like, in music, you're always playing other people's songs, right? And exercises, like, and that's what's going to build your dexterity. That's what's going to build your taste. That's what's going to build, your ability to make the tool second nature and what you want to say more center stage, right? So you're less thinking about, how do I move something to the left or to the right? And you're more thinking about, how do I make this easier to use, right? So this is just a tool. Keep in mind, like, music isn't what's on a sheet of paper. Music is when you're playing it, right? With groups of people or by yourself. So tools are never the design, right? It's what you design with. It's a medium. So don't look at this as like, this is going to make you a designer, right? So design is something that you work at, right? It's like going to the gym. The only way you get stronger or more flexible is if you work at it. And this is the gym, what you do with it. It's on your screen. So we live in an age where obviously information is at our fingertips. So a really cool thing to keep in mind is this little question mark in the bottom right here for Figma specifically. It is really awesome because it has all your keyboard shortcuts in a menu at your fingertips also. So everything that I've been going over, you can reference here, which is super cool because you don't have to go in your browser and start searching like, what are the hotkeys for Figma? They put them all right in this really nice menu. Also, when you click here, you get access to video tutorials, which I really love because this is where I spent hours and hours and hours as my team was switching over to Figma.
Hey, what's up?
Let me pause this real quick. And it takes you to YouTube where they've curated, hours of content here. Like you could really become a pro at this tool. Like I said, it's good to become a pro at user experience design and design principles too, to apply them here, kind of like your scales, and the fundamentals of playing music. But this will help you with the tool a lot. If you ever have any questions, there's a huge community out there of people who are using this and making it better. So this is always an option for you to learn more.
Hey, I have a quick question.
Sure.
So I'm kind of late to what's going on. So I'm on creating the frames to recreate what you have right here. How did you do the thing where you drag the different rectangles to have them equivalent with copying them with name, email, and username?
Sure, yeah, yeah. So I made all of these individually, right? So what you can do is you could press
Mm-hmm.
press T to create a text box, click and drag, right?
Yes, I have that right here.
Okay. And then so what's next?
How do you duplicate them so that they're the same size?
Okay. So you have one of these made already?
Yes.
Okay. So click, drag, and select both of them, right? And then once they're both selected, you can hold down Option, Shift, click, and then drag.
So Option, Shift, and then drag.
Yeah, then click
Okay.
and drag.
Okay, at the top of mine it says frame 1 and frame 2.
Uh-huh.
So how do I get rid of the, is that where I put the words?
So it says frame 1, frame 2 above each input field.
Yes.
Select both of them, or select it and press Shift Command G. Like, does it look like hold on. I don't
All
know.
right, Shift Command G, then what?
Yeah. So does the frame go away?
No, it just hold on. I'm trying to figure out how to undo what I just did.
Yeah, you can always press Command Z. Command Z always undoes whatever you just did.
It's not doing it.
Okay. And then the other thing you can just do is just make a new one. Just delete it and make a new one. So you can make a rectangle, press R, change it to white, right? You can change the radius on it to 3, 1, 2, 3, right? So now you have the background. Then you can press T, click drag, put name, then drag it over it. And now you have an input field again. So hopefully that helps. And like I said, those video tutorials, they also have ones that start out the very basics, and you can take your time with this and really get to know it. This is just a quick introduction. And what I want to jump over to is how to actually make a more dynamic prototype. And I want to show you the community aspect of it, like we were talking about earlier, where you can pull in elements that are already made, so you don't have to do a lot of stuff from scratch, just as you're learning. And in the future too, like during hackathons or building workshops where time is really crucial. So you just want to get something to kind of convey your idea. So what you can do is you can go over to this menu and go back to Files. And when you go back to Files, you have a Community tab, okay? Or it might say Beta and it might say Join. But either way, you can go in here and you can start searching for different things that are available, so like specific files. Oh yeah, the search is at the top here. So let's say I want to go to find like a user interface kit, is what they call them, UI kit. I'm going to type that in, and you'll see that there are tons of them, right? People have created tons of user interface kits. And so you could just click on one, and I've clicked on one here, and I have it, I believe, in my recent. So I'm going to open it. When I go in here, this is essentially files that people have made and made public for you to use. And I'm going to go back real quick just to show you, because what I had to do is I had to duplicate it into my space. So if you click on this, you want to click duplicate up here, and that will bring it into your Figma space. It's also really nifty. You can see the actual file embedded, and you can see all the different screens and pages within this file. So we're gonna go hop over to my recent, and it should have already opened that for you if you click duplicate. So you should be looking at something that looks like this, and this is just the cover image. So what you want to do is navigate to the pages on the left side panel here, and you want to click on Mobile UI Kit, and that will take you to the user interface elements that you can manipulate and play with. So this is your copy of a file that somebody else created that you can do whatever you want with, and it won't ruin, whatever. they made originally. So this is really
I
cool
had
because
a
let's say, go ahead.
I'm so sorry. I had a question, similar, and it's a more general question, so I'm not sure if this is the space yet, but like similar to Anna, I wanted to ask, like, between Adobe XD and Figma, what are better use cases for like both of them? If we wanted, like, is there a reason why Figma is better, like XD is better for particular reasons?
Yeah, I mean, and you know, we could get into a lot of that, and so you know, there's a lot of factors at play. One that you know, XD has always been kind of catching up. Like Sketch was like one of the first ones to come as a key player. A lot of people hopped on the Sketch train. XD came and like, hey, we're doing this thing, and they've just been iterating along the way. And there was a lot of things you couldn't do in XD that you could do with Sketch. And I'm not exactly sure where Adobe XD is now. I've heard that it's a lot more powerful and a lot more people are using it. But Figma came to the table as this first browser-based design program. So that's kind of like what's the main, for me, the main differentiator from these other tools is that you have to download an application, right? It uses a lot of processing speed, which your browser does too, or processing power. But this is completely like machine agnostic. As long as you have a browser, you can use this tool, which I thought was amazing, especially in a time where you have a lot of distributed teams or people around the world, around the country who are collaborating. You can download the app or you can have it in browser. And another thing is like if you lose internet connection, as long as you have the app open, whatever you're doing is saved at the same time in that app, and you can always open the app and continue working without internet connection. So that was a big thing for me too. I was like, well, you know, it's very rare now, but what if I don't have internet? What if, you know, thunderstorm or whatever? There is like a contingency plan for that too. So Figma is just super powerful, I think, for collaboration in distributed teams. And it's also really helpful for file management, because as you're building, like, it depends on if you know are in-house or agency, but or if you're just starting off and you have multiple projects, everything lives in this cloud. So you don't have a bunch of files that you're trying to like pass off to somebody. And for me, I work with a team with about 5 designers, and we're in like 4 different places around the country. And so it's really easy for me to say, hey, open up this project and let's hop in it together. Like, you know, let's work on it. Let's do a review. You know, I'm sick. Can you push this forward? You know what I mean? It's really easy, and I don't have to pass off a file that could be like, you know, 80 megabytes and take forever to send. So, but my biggest recommendation is if you're curious, try it. Go try XD, try Figma, try Sketch, because people find different things that they like about them. You know, whether it's the shortcuts or, you know, how it works with your OS. It's always about what works best for you. And there's a lot of videos out there that will compare them for you. And, you know, you can do a lot more research and dive deeper into that if you're interested. So hopefully that helps if anybody else was wondering that too.
Thank you. That helped a lot. Thanks.
Sure. Yeah. And I know we only have a few more minutes, but I'm going to stay on till 7:45, and we're going to do a 15-minute QA after this too. So I'm going to open it up to more of a discussion in a few minutes. But I just want to show you this cool aspect of Figma where we're actually taking these screens and connecting them in a way that makes it seem like it's an app on your phone. So this is where I think it also starts to be powerful as you're sharing this with stakeholders or internally, and you're kind of testing things once again without code. You know, so you can easily get this UI kit together and start to create something like this taco finder. You know, like here's the sign up screen that we just spent like 45 minutes trying to make a sign up, you know, screen, right? Where we could have just pulled this in and like moved on with our lives, right? And gotten to the meat of the product, right? No pun intended. So what we can start to do now is we can start to connect these and connect them in a way. It's like the way I describe it is like a PowerPoint. You know, when you click on the PowerPoint, it goes to another screen, but a PowerPoint is always obviously very linear. This allows you to click on what we call like a hotspot, and it can jump you anywhere within the prototype. So everything starts to become connected. And they visually represent that in the interface too. So what we're gonna do is, if some of you have this up, like I said, you could find it in the community center. We're gonna go to the prototype tool, the tab, which is in the top right, okay? And you can pick what phone. So it looks like this is an iPhone X because it has that little divot at the top there. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. Like I said, I have an iPhone 7. Okay, cool. And then we start to see like it turns into like a different mode. So we get these like these purple boxes with these blue dots and plus signs when you hover over them. Because what's happening now is like it's showing you that you can connect these components. So if I click this blue dot, I'm actually going to go to this login button. If I click this blue dot and I click it and I drag it, it's going to connect that element to this next screen. And I'm going to get this little pop-up here. And this is really cool because these are like if statements. It's like if I click this on tap or on drag or while hovering or while pressing. So there's all these different like physical like interactions that you can do. And so typically it's going to be on tap. But if you do that, what do you want it to do? You want it to navigate, open an overlay, scroll to, swap with, blah, 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 blah. Typically it's just navigate to, simple. And this is just a list of all the things that I can navigate to, which you don't have to worry about because you already selected it by clicking and dragging. And also there's a cool thing where you can do like animations. So it can move in and move out with easing. I usually just stick to instant, keep it simple unless you're trying to really impress somebody or emulate a certain interaction for a developer or something like that. Or if it's really important to the experience. So now when I go and when I play this prototype, I'm gonna play it. When I click this button, it will go to this screen. So what I'm gonna do is the way that Figma indicates where the prototype starts is using this blue play button that you see here. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click it, hold it down and drag it because I want it to start here now, right? So now that prototype knows that it starts here, so I'm gonna go to the play button in the top right. And so I'm gonna click present. And so what's cool is like in your browser, it loads up this prototype and it gives you the phone interface, right? And so now that I have this interface and I have this connected, all I have to do is click on this button and it goes to that screen, right? Which is really nifty, but how do I get back, right? I don't have anything indicating how I get back. Then there's a back button at the top left here, but what I have to do is I have to set that up. So I'm gonna go back to my prototype or my designs, and I'm still in prototype mode, and I'm gonna click that element. But you see when I click this, it highlights all three of these because they're grouped. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna double click, and it's gonna click a layer into that group and isolate that back button. And it gives me the blue, click, drag, and I'm gonna just drag it back to that screen. On tap, navigate, blah, 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 instant, same stuff. So now I don't have to click present again. I could just go to that tab that I had it in and I can go and click back and now I can go back. So now this is fully connected, right? Which is pretty sweet because now you could send this link to your phone. You could send this to your product manager. You could send it to your team and you could say, hey, made the onboarding process for a taco finder. Like, what do you guys think? And someone could be like, cool, this is actually really smooth. I think, we could add an illustration here, or actually there's, what if you forgot to add the forgot your password button? They'd be like, hey, you forgot this. And then that's your way of showing somebody what you've created. And you don't have to like send a PDF or send screenshots or anything. It's all managed and it happens within this one program. So one more thing I'm going to show you is, which I think might be helpful, is if you need to use images. And so I know it's kind of going back to designing, but what I want to show you is if you ever need to pull in images, it's really simple. So I'm going to go ahead and detach this because it wouldn't let me ungroup it. And so I'm going to go to Google and search taco. Not Taco Bell, taco. And images. Okay, cool. There's a taco. I like that one. And I'm going to open it in a new tab. Go to that new tab, and I'm just going to screenshot it. So Shift Command 4 if you're using a Mac. I'm just going to click and drag that. What's cool is it pops up in the bottom right here. I'm going to navigate back to, oh, am I going to lose it? I'm going to click it from the bottom right and just drag it in here. Super big, right? So we're going to click that image and we're just going to downsize it. Once again, I hold Shift Option, and that resizes it from all angles in a constrained way. Boom, boom, boom. That's reasonable. So now we have a taco here. But let's say, like, if you see this shape right here, we want it to have the rounded corners, right? You can't necessarily, or can you do it within this? Hold on. Oh, you can. Okay. Well, let's say that you want let's say this wasn't like the right, what do you call it? Like it wasn't cut off the right way, cropped the right way. That's the word I'm looking for. So you want it really big, but it's not fitting exactly how you want it. You can mask this image with this shape. Okay, so I'm going to click this, and I'm going to have them both selected, and I'm going to right click, and I am going to go to use as mask. Boom. So now that image is within this shape that I had behind it, and I can double click, which selects that image, and then drag it. And then you'll see that it lives within that shape that I masked it with. So now I can make it really big if I want to, and it doesn't overflow. So super easy to bring images in. And if you didn't bring them in where they show up on the bottom right, you can just go to your Finder and click on an image and just bring it in if you want to, that way too. But I know we're a couple minutes over time, and I believe we kind of went over a little bit of everything I wanted to touch on. It might have been a lot, but I'm hoping it was helpful. Somebody's having a good time on their end. But I'm gonna leave it open to any questions you want to type in or put in the chat, or if you want to come off mute and ask something, feel free. And Amira, if you want to do a different format, let me know.
Yeah, so there are some people that asked 2 questions while you were working on stuff.
Sure.
So the first one was by Ariana, and any advice or places to go in community when prototyping a website. So I think she's like mainly asking for like, where are the best places I can get resources for building?
Yeah, so I guess it's like, it depends on like what phase you're in for building. If you're looking to get like interface elements, like what we're talking about here, I believe that this community section is like super powerful. You could just, you can go back, click community top left, and you can just type in anything. Like you can put like design system, right? And you get to, and then you can see how other people are building design systems. Like, look at this one. This one is like freaking huge, right? And like it's loading right now. And once it's done loading, we can explore it. But if you're looking for actual like graphic elements, the community section in Figma is really good. If you're looking for education, YouTube channels, obviously YouTube Academy, we're all graduating from it. Go to the YouTube Academy, and Figma has its own channel. In the physical space, I highly recommend connecting one with Reach and Act House, of course, if you're near us, but also, we're very digital right now, so we're going to have more events in the future. And then also look into your local AIGA chapter, which is the American Institute for Graphic Artists. AIGA is one of the first professional graphic associations that I ever joined, and it has opened a world of smart people and resources to me. It's amazing. I started a chapter with a group of friends in Tallahassee, and now I'm part of the chapter in Washington, D.C. So AIGA is an awesome group to be with. Usually wherever you are, there's a chapter that's near you, and since everything is pretty digital right now, you can just join the nearest chapter, and most of the events are online.
All right, awesome. And then Arnold asked if it's possible to create a 3D image or maybe put a 3D image in Figma and have it rotate. I was thinking like I don't think Figma really supports like creating 3D images unless you're like actually making one, but you can find like mock-ups that are 3D images and animate them within Figma. But if it's like an actual like 3D model, that may be a little bit trickier, but they do have like those realistic images that look like they're 3D that you can put in Figma.
Yeah, like I don't know. I think I don't know how this stuff is rendering because it's claiming that these are 3D objects. 3D shapes for your designs. I have no idea how this is rendering though. Like, is it a PNG? Yeah, this is a PNG. Yeah, you can't make this in here. Yeah, look at those pixels.
Yeah, personally, what I do for that is that I go to places like the LS store or it's L store graphics. And then with that, there's a whole bunch of free mockups that you can use there. So I think, yeah, L store, you can get a whole bunch of free ones from there. I think there's also another one called like Artboard Studio, but I'm not exactly sure the name of that. But you can get those 3D objects and animate them as well.
Very cool. I didn't know that.
Does Figma allow you to add audio to projects?
Ooh, audio. No, not that I know of, but don't hold me to it, but I don't think so. But what you can do is you can add video in the form of GIFs. So let's say you want to like emulate like a video header or hero section or something like that. I believe you can drop in a GIF and it'll have movement in your prototype. Any other questions? Oh, there's a taco.
Yeah, and just keep in mind that like Figma is mainly a design tool. So think about it in forms of like design. And then once you get to like features and like it needs to do a whole bunch of extra stuff, there are free apps that you can use as like builders like bubble.io to transfer those Figma designs to like an actual like application.
Yep. And a really awesome part of these tools too is you can pull code from them. So if you go into inspect mode and you select an element, it'll tell you, all of its properties. So when I say collaboration, I don't mean just collaboration between designers. I mean collaboration between designers and developers, right? So your creative technologists or your back-end developers, your front-end developers, mostly your front-end developers, of course. But they can pull code straight from here. And I've worked with Sketch, I don't know, I believe since it came out, and we recently made the switch to Figma, and the developers I work with love the inspect tool here, in contrast to Sketch or InVision. So, once you do go to code, I know that I had that conversation earlier about, what's the, downside to not using code. What's really cool is they close that gap. So it's not like you have to figure out what all the code is. It's anything you do within this program, they don't allow you to do it unless there's code that goes with it. So that's really like a big departure from Photoshop where you could kind of do anything, right? Which is where, back in the day, like, 2012, 13, early 2000s, where people were designing in Photoshop and of course before that. So really powerful to be able to pull the code straight from the tool itself. So you're designing something that is almost one-for-one when it goes to your developers.
All right, and Melanie asks, when it comes to UX research, how can you hand off a prototype to a user remotely using Figma?
Yeah, so when it comes to user research like that, that's a whole talk and subject in itself. But essentially, some basic elements of user research are, knowing who would be typically using your product, right, and identifying those people. And when you make that handoff, having some sort of discussion guide, right, to guide you along the way. And of course, figuring out how you can facilitate it in a way that's not leading, right? So those are just some basics there. And then sharing this, you can create a link. So I think that's what you're asking more of, like, what's the practical way you can share it. So once you create a prototype, like we did just now, I'm going to go back to it in this tab. There's a share button in the top right, and you click share prototype, right? And this is where you get your permissions panel. So is it anyone with the link? Is it only people invited to this file, right? And what can they do? So you type in an email here, right? What can they do? Can they view? Can they edit? So you manage all of that here, and then you can send them to look at it, or you can just copy the link. So if you're reaching out to people who you're interviewing, in that email, you can embed a link to this prototype where they can only see this view. So when you get them up, when you get them online and you're having the discussion with them, they can have this in front of them and go through it as if it was an actual product. Hopefully that helps.
All right, awesome, everyone. Does anybody have any other questions?
Yeah, even if it's unrelated to Figma or just design or UX or UI in general or anything, feel free.
How do we feel?
Yeah. Did everybody learn something? Thumbs up?
Yeah, thumbs up if emoji thumbs up if you learned something and don't have your camera on. I know y'all got emojis.
How many of you are developers that dabble in code? Thumbs up.
How much experience do you have?
Oh, how many
Experience do you have?
how much experience do I have? Okay, so a little bit my resume. I graduated with a graphic design degree in 2014, and I've worked for Marketing for Change since then. So going on 7 years professionally, and you know, of course, throughout college, working with professors and other people, mostly focusing on like fine art in the tech space, and creating like different like commentaries on like social issues and social dynamics and psychology like that. So it was actually before I even like knew what UX design was. So like kind of studying the psychology and our emotional connection to technology, thinking of like the movie Her. I don't know if you've ever seen that, or Ex Machina, or any of the like Black Mirror. Like that stuff is like blows my mind. You know, like that stuff is the stuff I'm really interested in, is like our emotional connection to technology. So it really set me up really well to embrace the space of human-centered design, user experience design, and product design. And I've been very fortunate to work on some awesome projects, like I talked about before, like the American Academy of Pediatrics. Like I helped refine like their breastfeeding curriculum that they distribute throughout hospitals. So that was like an online curriculum, which is like super important. Recently built the recruitment site for the public health services, which is one of our uniform services under the health and human services of our country. So they're uniformed officers that are deployed all over the country for like different health issues, like obviously with the coronavirus, Ebola, and they wanted like a recruitment site that was like up to par with the Army and the Navy. So USPHS.gov, I believe, is that site. So I've been super fortunate to work on a lot of like impact related projects, and I highly encourage you all to find the things that you love and are interested in, which I know you all have already. You have plenty of time to have had plenty of time to kind of think about what you love. And it's not about what you do, but find what you love. And then design can be applied to any of that. Design is a universal language that when you know enough about what you're building and who you're building for, you can apply fundamental principles to make it come to life. So whether, you know, if you love sports, right? Or if you love, you know, diversity in sports, like how do you design for that? You know, and it's not even designing these digital products, but how do you design a space that gets people to that, right? Like a digital product is usually one step along the way, right? So think of things in terms of ecosystems. think of things in terms of user journeys. What is the journey of somebody getting to this thing that you're building? And then you'll really start to see and develop a vision for a landscape, right? And the more you understand the landscape and the people you're building for, then the better you understand what it is, that the role that thing that you're building plays. So all that to say, that my experience has brought me to be able to share these things with you, which I think is really awesome. And I hope to do it more in the future. And if you all want to keep in touch, find me on LinkedIn, message me, say what's up, follow Reach on Instagram, follow Act House on Instagram, and we'll be pushing out more stuff and more events in the future. And Mira and Denise and I and the rest of the team will keep you all plugged in.
Yeah. Awesome. So yeah, I just want to encourage everyone to keep in touch with us. And especially if you guys are wanting to build more and do more user-centered design. Our next event is going to be a skill training, and then immediately after that is going to be a design sprint. So we'll be sending those details out to your emails if you guys are interested in that. But this is in partnership with the Collective Studio. So it'll be hosted on Discord, so it'll be a new app that you guys will kind of have to learn a little bit about. If you guys are gamers, and usually people are pretty familiar with Discord. But if I would recommend the design sprint if you're looking to kind of have that mindful thought process of creating before you're actually prototyping. So there won't be a lot of physical high fidelity prototyping like we did in this workshop, but more so like mindful thinking and thinking of ways to create solutions for problems and then designing. So I would recommend that we stay in touch. I will be sending some additional information, and I do recommend to fill out feedback surveys that are in the chat.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Amira. And thank you, Denise, for all your help. And thank you, everyone, for joining. And I hope to see your faces again. Yeah, like Amira said, there's a lot more going on behind the scenes behind just using the tools. There's the design principles. There's user experience design. So we're going to be putting out a lot of other workshops to help support and further your education in the design space. So thanks again for joining, and we'll see you in the next workshop. Bye, everyone. And I'm going to